But I'll go ahead and get started with our introduction. Welcome to the Bottom Reader Book Club. I'm Lauren Rhodes. I'm a Mississippi transplant based in Jackson, and I'm also the founder and editor-in-chief of Rooted Magazine and the author of the memoir Split the Baby. At Rooted, our mission is to tell stories of place from the people who call Mississippi home. And the book club is an extension of this mission, where we celebrate writers with a connection to the South and books that give us greater insight into place and home, which this book we are going to be talking about absolutely does. So tonight, Ellen Morris Prewitt will be joining us to talk about her wonderful novel, When We Were Murderous Time-Traveling Women. The novel straddles New Orleans and Mississippi. It deals with the weighty topics of grief, regret, and how to grapple with the sins of our ancestors. So some heavy topics, and yet at the same time, the story is effervescent. It's fantastical, and there were many times when I just was literally laughing out loud. It's very funny in places. But ultimately, it was a really fun and thought-provoking read. I'm so excited that you're here to chat with us, Ellen. So thank you for joining tonight.
Well, thank you so much. I am so glad to be here. You know, I have been a fan of you and Rooted for just ever. And I do want to mention that I have bought my last two books after one of them was listening to the last month's book club. And then one of them was the most recent Rooted interview. So it's also
Ryan Foster. Yeah.
it's a source of literature that you're doing as a result of this too. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being part of it. I know I feel like I have a whole section on my bookshelf just of like Mississippi authors and people who have written for Rooted and people doing really cool things. So I'm so glad that When We Were Murderous Time-Traveling Women is now on the shelf too. But the book came out earlier this year, so it's still relatively new in the world. And I saw you at Lemuria Books, so you've been all over the place. You did an event at 100 Men Hall, Ellen Palooza. How is book tour going?
It's been fun. You know, it's one of those things where it's almost like you're giving a party and you don't know if anybody's going to come or not. You know, so
It can
there's
be
that
stressful that way. Yeah.
there's that stress element. And then you get into it and it's like, this is the coolest, most fun thing. And three of the events I've done with other folks who I admire greatly. And so to get to be in conversation with them, you know, it kicked off with Maurice Carlish Ruffin and Desiree Evans doing the launch in New Orleans. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And it just went, you know, it went on from there. So it's been so much fun. I've enjoyed it.
And I think that's the great thing that you know so many people in different places that it's like you have this community that you can mobilize whenever you're in a different spot. So you have your New Orleans folks, your Memphis folks, your Jackson. I mean, there was a huge turnout at Lemuria.
There was.
That was so fun.
Well, I lived in Jackson for 20 years. When I was practicing law there, I lived there as a little girl and then was away for the middle part of my growing up years and then came back and practiced law there for 20 years. So Jackson is home. I have, you know, that your question in the interview about home. I have so many homes.
That is a blessing for sure. So, and I think it's appropriate that the narrator in this book has two homes. She has her Mississippi. There's various places in Mississippi where she can call home, but she's also Jackson with her grandmother and then her other great grandmother and grandmother. So and then she's in New Orleans. So she has that kind of dual citizenship between those two places. But I want to start with just your path to publishing this book, because even though it's your first traditionally published book, it's definitely not your first novel. And hearing you talk at Lemuria, it's nowhere near your first novel manuscript, but it sounds like writing this book was a very different experience for you. Can you talk about your path to, you know, just writing and publishing When We Were Murderous Time-Traveling Women? Did it feel different when you were working on it?
It absolutely did. So I started out doing short form work when I first started writing. My first thing were radio commentaries for the local
Oh.
NPR in Memphis. And then I did a lot of essays and short stories and got a lot of stuff published. And then decided to take on writing a novel. And I had 3 different manuscripts with 3 different agents in 3 different genres that they could not sell. They
Mhm.
took them on and that awful term "died on submission," which just seems so graphic to me, but they could but then also it's a little comforting that it happens enough they have a name for it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, you're nowhere near the first person for that to happen to.
that they could not sell it, and so in that interim, I self-published 2 novels, because I really thought that I was waiting for an agent to sell a traditional novel, and I thought, "Oh,
Mhm.
well, I'll just keep myself busy in the meantime," but then that didn't happen, and so, in about 2017